Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 39 of Logicast, the AWS News podcast brought to you by Logicata. And this episode we are calling our pre-invent special because next week is reInvent, the annual AWS conference in Las Vegas. And we're going to talk through some of the announcements that have already come out prior to the reInvent conference. So my name's Carl Robinson. I'm CEO and co-founder of Logicata. And I'm joined today, as always, by my colleague, John Goodall. How are you doing today, John?
I feel more lit. Do I look more lit? I put a new light up at the weekend and I feel more lit.
You're more lit and your background is blurry. So if your cat is going to come into shot today, I don't think she's going to be in focus.
Oh, it's too cold. No, let's just stay in the house.
And we're joined once again by our good friend Johannes Koch, who last time he joined us was an AWS community builder, but in the meantime has gone on to be promoted to AWS Hero. So congratulations on that, Johannes. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. Thanks a lot for having me once again, Carl. And I would not say that it's being promoted to be a hero, right? It's just a different kind of thing, right? Obviously, I'm really happy that my community contributions have been recognized. And I think that's how to see it, right? It's not about promotion. Being a community builder is amazing because you get a lot of information already and a lot of guidance as well. So I always try to push back on that, on that way of seeing it, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, congratulations nonetheless on having your contributions recognized. Keep up the good work. And I guess that's what we're doing. We're making some more contributions right here, right now. And you're actually attending reInvent next week, Johannes, right?
That's correct. Yes, I'm going to be in Vegas.
And if you've got your comfy shoes and your lip balm and everything else that gets advised in the
most anti-back gel mask.
So actually, this year is the first time that my back is not empty when going to reInvent because I'm bringing a lot of stuff over, right? So bringing to community builders or to community members from all around the world, bringing some stuff from Germany that they usually don't get. I'm going to go there with a full bag and hopefully come back with a full bag again.
You're doing a swag swap, essentially.
Kind of, yeah, kind of.
So what are you taking? Are you allowed to say?
I think I am. So one of the community members asked for a very special nougat chocolate cream that only exists in Germany. Another person asked for soups that you don't get in US. It's strange, but she's from Germany. So that's actually Lily from the community team. And then another person asked for, there's a German Christmas market stuff like kind of that you eat, right? So sweets at the end. And you don't get that in US as well. So that's what I'm bringing as well.
So it's kind of more
it's in Vegas and not Australia then, because they'd take all of that and arrest you.
More of a care package than a swag pack. But
yeah, not really a swag pack. And this year I have my own stickers, right? So I created stickers with my logo that you see on the upper right over there or left, I don't know. But that's the first time that I'm bringing some. That's
now that you've told us that, you're going to have to send us some stickers. You know, we're big sticker fans over here at Logicast. So
I know, I can.
As we're sadly not going to be at reInvent, maybe you could pop us some Lockheed stickers in the post for our laptops.
I'm happy to do so. Then you can distribute that in your user group as well, right?
Absolutely, which is tonight. Although when people are listening to this, it won't be tonight. But when we're recording it, it's our user group meeting tonight. So yeah. Anyway, we're not here to talk about exporting sweet goods from Germany.
No.
We are here to talk about AWS news. And as it's reInvent next week, there have been an absolute barrage of announcements. My newsletter was longer than my arm this week with all of the new announcements coming out of AWS in the build up to reInvent. So we couldn't possibly go through all of them, but we have picked a few that we thought were pretty cool, and we're going to discuss those today. So the first one is this new app that AWS have launched called Partyrock. What a great name for an app. Just makes it sound really exciting. But Partyrock is a new app that AWS launched last week, I think, which helps you to build AI apps on Amazon Bedrock, just using plain language inputs. So what are your thoughts on this one, guys?
Well, we had to talk about it, didn't we? I think I saw 4, 5 in a row LinkedIn posts saying Partyrock, 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 one of which was Johannes. And then previous speaker at one of our events, Matt Carey, put a thing up, and he'd done a couple of them, one of which for generating emails to go to conferences. Obviously, it's reInvent season. And the other one that was much more interesting was telling you what's wrong with your plants. So apparently my peace lily needs more nitrogen, apparently.
So have you built any apps on it yet, Johannes?
Oh, well, yes, of course. So one of the things that kind of no one speaks about in all of the thing is that Partyrock has been built in Germany, right? Which is pretty cool. So I know the team that has been working on this. They work out of the Berlin office for AWS. And I think Partyrock is, at least for AWS, a game changer because it makes generative AI a little bit more accessible, right? So it gives you really people like, I don't know, it gives salespeople the possibility to try out Gen AI without the need to really understand what happens kind of on the downside of it, and still build something cool around it, right? So one of the things that I've seen being built is create a quiz, right? 10 years ago, I was preparing my child's birthday, and I was preparing a quiz, right? And that was really hard because I needed to think up and make up ideas, right? Now I can just use that app and give it a prompt that says, create questions for a kid in 5 years old about a certain topic. And it's going to spill me out 15 questions in addition to that with the answers. And I don't need to think about that anymore, right? And that's where Partyrock really makes what Gen AI is going to be accessible. However, I think it's not perfect. In my article that John mentioned, I have some things that I would need, right? It's cool to make Bedrock accessible through that tool. But now, how do we give this in the hands of builders, right? So at the end, I would love to get the CDK code required to host this application in my own AWS account, as an example. So I could then potentially deploy that into my AWS account and understand all of the Bedrock integrations that we have in that API. And I think that's some stuff that the team could be adding going forward as well.
Did you see John Topper's video that he did where he was trying to get it to do his job for him? It's quite an amusing take on it. Yeah, John Topper is the leader of the AWS User Group UK, and he did a short video on it yesterday, and he was basically trying to get it to write social media posts from AWS blog posts that his customer base would understand.
Yeah, a friend of mine did a market this service application for himself. So he's a consultant as well, right? So then he just gives them a topic and an idea, and it generates all of the marketing material that you need, and you can directly use that. So it was pretty fun when I saw that.
Yeah. But I think word of caution to anyone using this: check the output, because it's not always necessarily 100% what you'd be looking for. And I
wonder if our good friend Werner will start complaining about Bedrock not being optimized for the truth, because he did about GPT.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how the different models are kind of tuned and trained, but usually if you get the wrong thing out, it's because you put the wrong thing in. So it's all about having the right prompts, prompt engineering, as it's being coined nowadays. So
yeah, and that's where Partyrock helps you a lot, right? Because you can change those prompts on kind of short notice, just change it and see what the outcome is out of it, right? And I think, as I said, it makes stuff more accessible. It puts it more in the hands of you as a kind of user using Bedrock. And before that, at least for me, kind of Bedrock felt so far away. If you did not have a specific use case on how to really use that, I didn't really think about using it. Now I have a possibility to play around with it, gain my own experiences, right? And even share that with John, right, to help him plan his next year's reInvent trip, as an example. I have an application that calculates, I created an application that calculates the steps between different buildings, right? So how much do you need to walk between Venetian and Mandalay Bay, which is one of the challenging things at reInvent as well, right? I have an app that does that, and that was like 1 minute to do, right? So that's really, it's cool.
Definitely takes more than a minute to walk from the Venetian to Mandalay Bay, because those are pretty far apart. But yeah, you don't want to be subscribing for a 10 o'clock talk in one and an 11 o'clock talk in the other. If your Vegas geography is not up to speed. So yeah, and I did see. I don't know if it was one of the defaults or one I saw on somebody else's post, but it was there was an app which could write a justification letter to your employer about why you should be able to go to a specific
That
conference,
was Matt
such
Carey's.
as reInvent. That was Matt Carey's,
That
was
was
it?
Matt.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So it seems like it was too late for you guys to go then, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, next year we'll be there. Next year we'll be recording live from reInvent next year, 2024. So cool.
You heard it
Okay,
here first. And if this doesn't happen, all 7 listeners, I want you to send hate mail to Carl.
More hate mail to Carl. Yeah. I have a special filter for that. So yeah. Anyway, let's move on from Partyrock. We should have saved the party till the end, but no, we've got a good article to finish on as well. But before we get to that, let's move on to our next article that we've selected for this week. This is another announcement, and this one is about the introduction of new advanced logging controls for AWS Lambda functions. So the weather's getting colder. It's the time of year when you want more logs, usually for the fire. But here we can have more logs for serverless. So John, I know you're a serverless community builder. Are you excited about this announcement?
Well, what this does is this replaces functionality that I've had to build before, which is kind of an AWS thing. They do that. Right, I'll have a problem, or builders will have a problem. People will work around it, and AWS will then make that problem go away. Usually, just after I finish building the workaround, which is just like timing. Thanks, guys, but whatever. But this is cool. This is genuinely quite cool, because one of the things that's key generally in application logging, Lambda or not, is putting out different types of logs and different levels of logs depending on what you're trying to achieve. In production, you don't want full debug or verbose logging running, because it's just going to fill up your log storage or cost you loads of money in CloudWatch logs or whatever. But in development, you want as many logs as you can possibly get, because you're still developing the application. You don't quite know how it's going to behave. You're debugging it, so you need more data. And historically, what you've had to do is build kind of your own logging tool, because CloudWatch logs, Lambda logs piping out to CloudWatch just kind of took anything that would log to the console. So you had to sort of build your own way of doing that. So you go, I'm in dev, log at this level. I'm in prod, log at that level, and it would kind of spew it all out. But now this is kind of doing a good chunk of that for you, and it's adhering to standards as well, which is cool. So excited is probably the wrong word, but it's useful.
Yeah, I think it simplifies a lot of the login mechanisms that you had been doing manually so far, right? And it makes things a little bit easier. I think that there is an integration with CloudWatch Insights already, right? But what I would love for is kind of now taking all of these log files and potentially using GenAI or something else to generate insights that really help me to improve my code or my Lambda or whatever, right? I think that's stuff that we could potentially build on top of this announcement as well going forward.
Yeah, I did just, it's not made it into the newsletter yet because it's an article that I shared today, but I saw something today about using GenAI to create, I think it was CloudWatch dashboards. I'm trying to find, leverage generative AI to create custom dashboard widgets in Amazon CloudWatch using Amazon Code Whisperer. So lots of uses for GenAI around helping you to better leverage AWS services.
Yeah. So I think one point it makes, and John, I don't know if you agree to that, but one point it really makes is use a managed runtime. Because only if you use a managed runtime, that's when you really get all of those benefits, right? If you have something, a runtime that is not AWS managed, you need to still build that stuff on your own, right? And I think that's one of the points that the article also makes.
Yeah, it's a reasonable one, because there's managed runtimes there's 6 of them, I think. I forget all of them off the top of my head, but there's Node.js if you're mental, and you can use JavaScript or TypeScript. And you've got Python, you've got .NET, Java again if you're insane and like things taking a long time to load. But if you're going,
I wouldn't agree to that comment, but okay, let's go.
JVM, cold starts in Java hurt. It's a lot better than it used to be, but cold starts in Java suck.
Snap starts, it's better, right? But so
I'm just butthurt about Java. I don't like it.
Okay, makes sense.
I have a bad history with JVMs generally.
Doesn't everyone?
Yeah. But yeah, if you're running things in PHP, for argument's sake, and you're having to do that into a Docker container to then run it in your own runtime, it's just you're making more work for yourself than I think you really needed to. It's one of those. We use PHP because we use PHP. Other annoying scripting languages are available. You could do it anything you like. But it's one of those. We do it this way because we do it that way, and we're going to cut our nose off to spite our face and put rounds in our feet and all the rest of it, just because we do things this way. And as you say, if you start using things outside of the core of the managed service, you're hurting yourself more and more because you're having to build more and more for yourself, which is sort of not the point, really.
Yeah. So for me, using a container in Lambda is kind of a no-go because it really removes Lambda itself, right? So I rather, and I don't know what your opinion is, John, but rather use a layer on top of a managed runtime than building my own container, right? But that's, I don't know. I think here we need to improve the number of available managed runtimes that AWS offers, right? So
that's an interesting point because they took away the managed runtime for Go and then told you to use provided Linux, which is okay. Go is a funny one because it runs better on bare metal than it does in containers anyway. But yeah, it would be nice to see a few more languages supported.
Yeah, so other than that, I think it also plays together with the Power Tools. So I don't know if you're using Power Tools regularly.
Yeah, some and some. It's Power Tools are a bit inconsistent between the languages, though, again, because they're open source, community driven. And if you look at the Power Tools for Python, I quite like those because they do a lot of like boilerplate stuff for you. Here's how you get something from Dynamo. It's just about 2 lines of code. Bang. But then Power Tools for Node.js are fundamentally different, and it's just lots of logging. Like, okay, cool. Where it was last time I looked.
Yeah, so one of the bigger announcements this year was that the Power Tools team is now an official team at AWS, and they are working to streamline that a little bit. So you could also potentially ask Ran Eisenberg to get on the show next time and talk in details around that because he's been heavily involved. He's also giving a talk with Heitor Lesa, who is the lead of the Power Tools team next week at re:Invent, right? So that's potentially also pretty interesting to talk about those differences and make sure that gets aligned a little bit better.
John loves talking about Power Tools. He's usually got a few on display behind him, but you can't see that today because he's blurred his background. So anyway, on that
I don't
note,
know how I did that. I've no idea. I did it for a Teams call and it seems to have stuck.
Yeah. Well, it works. Don't worry. We can still see your face. So unless, of course, you're listening to the podcast, in which case you just have to imagine what John looks like. Anyway, moving swiftly on then to the next pre-invent announcement that we picked up this week. Sticking with a serverless theme. This one was the introduction of AWS Step Functions redrive to recover from failures more easily. So I have to confess, this is not something I understand in any great depth, but I think there's always been a retry. Now there's a redrive. What's the difference?
Short version, retry starts from the beginning, redrive starts from where it failed. That's not groundbreaking. That's not, yeah, I know, right? That's not groundbreaking. That's not earth-shattering. What that is really, really handy if you've got a workflow that does transcoding or something that takes a very long time at the start and then fails afterwards, because you can just keep hitting the thing that's failed and go, oh, that's why it's fallen over. More useful for debugging things than it is for production, I think. But that's really handy.
Yeah, I'm not sure, right? So if you have a step function that handles all of your ETL for any kind of use case that takes multiple minutes, you don't need to do everything kind of again, right? So think of a big data import pipeline that you do for your AI stuff, right? Where you kind of build your own model.
And that's 3 AIs in a row now.
You can do a lot of things with that, right? So I think really that having the possibility to not start from the top really will also be able to save you a lot of state transitions, or also help you to save a lot of other pieces, right? Especially also with all of that functionalities that the function has today, right? It can help you in production to not regenerate a booking ID or something like that, right? And that's where I believe it is an important functionality that we missed so far.
Yes and no. Yes and no. You're not wrong. Fundamentally, you're not wrong. You've always kind of been able to do that in your workflow because you could catch failures and do automatic retries on that particular thing if it failed for a reason that you specified. But again, that's state transitions. And for those that are unfamiliar, and it'll probably come up in the talk, that the author of this article, who is speaking at our event tonight, it's lovely this, is going to talk about, is in a standard step functions workflow, you pay per state transition. It's not horrifically expensive. I think it's 25 cents per 1,000. But if you're running these at production scale, hyperscale, it can get very expensive very quickly. So one of the ways of optimizing for cost is optimizing to reduce the number of state transitions. So if you can do that anyway, it's worth doing.
Yep.
Nice. You should have primed me on that, John, because I hadn't actually noticed the author of the article was Mr. Ben Smith, who will be...
One thing I will never do, Carl, is prime you. Ugh.
Sounds painful. On that note, let's move on to yet another announcement, a pre-invent announcement. And this one is about Amazon CodeCatalyst now supporting single sign-on using AWS IAM IDC, Identity Center. So this is your wheelhouse, Johannes. Tell us more.
Yes, so much to say about this one. This is a big one, right? This is a big one because it starts to hit on one of the things that CodeCatalyst team has been getting as a negative feedback in the last year. It gives the possibility now to integrate with your own IDP at the end. So as an enterprise, if you're a bigger company, you can now use the Identity Center, which is already connected to your internal IDP, to allow and enable access to CodeCatalyst. This is really cool, right? So you can now really manage all of your, and we have another announcement for CodeCatalyst that we had, I think, a few days ago around Teams being available in CodeCatalyst, right? So you can now also map roles from your internal network or from your internal Active Directory directly into CodeCatalyst. And this is where I think it opens up the way for a lot of additional use cases for CodeCatalyst. Also, I think a lot of people have been complaining about CodeCatalyst living outside the AWS console. This kind of brings it back in a way like you can manage access in CodeCatalyst through that Identity Center integration, right? So as you can see, I'm completely fascinated by that announcement, right? And I think that this will really change perspectives on CodeCatalyst as well. I don't know, John, tell me, you haven't used it much, I guess, right?
No, I have no need for a number of reasons. One is, toot my own horn, I've done the DevOps Pro exam. I've passed that. I kind of know what I'm doing just with the tools anyway and with infrastructure as code. And it's not something that power users, for want of a better term, really kind of need or use, in my opinion. Graphing tools and visualization tools, going back to the previous thing about step functions, there's a plugin in VS Code that will draw your step function for you after you've written it out in the JSON-ish syntax. That's really helpful. So I can see CodeCatalyst being used kind of the other way by pro users and power users, because it's here's an infrastructure I've just taken over. What does it actually look like? Boom. Because there's 1,001 drawing tools, but having one that's kind of AWS approved, again, lack of a better term, is quite handy. The integration with IDC, though, as you say, is brilliant.
But CodeCatalyst is not a drawing tool at the end, right? CodeCatalyst is, I think, so we need to, you can see it as the GitHub for AWS, right? And I know that it's not from
I'd argue that was code commit, wouldn't they?
No. It's CodeCatalyst is that integrated DevTools service that really gives you the possibility to manage your projects.
I'm confusing tools. I'm thinking of Application Composer. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah. So it's a different thing. The CodeCatalyst really helps you in this case to build all of your whole project on AWS, right? And this is where now with that IAM integration, Identity Center integration, it kind of brings that kind of externally setting service a little bit more together with what you have already in your AWS infrastructure. There's also that blueprint stuff that we have, and this empowers you to do better things going forward, combined with the integration center and a few of the things that we might be hopefully seeing soon. I think that we're going to be learning a lot on how CodeCatalyst can be a center of your CI and CD, but also your development work on AWS, right? And now I think you're both in consulting with Logic Kata, right? And if you now have your own identity center and your customers can enable you to access their CodeCatalyst spaces through identity center connectivity, right? That's also going to help you to directly work on their code, and then they can take that away directly again afterwards. So I see a lot of potential of this service. And John, seeing that you confused it with Application Composer, where I completely agree with you, that is not really something that we directly need right now. I think you should have a second look on it. And
yeah, it's an interesting one. It is, because not talking about the tool itself per se, I was at a community day of some description a little while ago that the dev advocates ran, and they brought it up in there, and here's your workflows and here's your Kanban board and kind of all the rest of it. Brilliant. GitHub's better. It's one of those things. It's just more advanced. It's just more mature. But the point I was meandering to was, we use and recommend IDC with our customers anyway, just because you should use it. But the biggest issue with an external identity provider is, particularly if you're working with a partner, if you have hooked it up to Google or Entra ID, as Azure AD is now called, you then have to add your third-party partners into your Active Directory or whatever, and then your security people are going to have a fit. So it's double-edged. It's double-edged, because there's no way of just giving access without going through all of the proper procedures. Arguably, you should go through all the proper procedures, but sometimes it's not fast to do that.
So, Johannes, do you see CodeCatalyst replacing GitHub for some AWS native users?
That's an interesting question.
That's a big question.
So let's start a little bit smaller. Do I see CodeCatalyst replacing CodeStar, CodeCommit, and similar things? Yes, definitely. Right. You could directly use that. Replacing GitHub is a little bit too much. So today, CodeCatalyst offers the possibility to integrate with GitHub, also with GitHub workflows and stuff like that. Right. I think one of the benefits for GitHub today still is that GitHub can be used for multi-cloud deployments, and CodeCatalyst is limited to AWS deployments. Obviously, very much integrated, right? Than other tools, but still it's limited to that. The team has some work to do to put it at feature parity with tools like GitHub that have been started a few years ago, as John already mentioned. But I know that there is a lot of cool things that the team has been working on, and I've been talking to them about what I would like to get. And here, John, if you have any things like what would make you use CodeCatalyst, just send me a note afterwards, and I can relay that to the team, right? Because I think that having an integrated service that runs natively on AWS will empower us developers going forward to be more successful and to develop faster, right? Because that's really what we all aimed for, right? Is improving the developer experience of us building cool stuff on AWS, right? And if CodeCatalyst plays a central place there, right, then I think that can be beneficial. John doesn't like that. I can see that in your face. For those not listening,
I'm very set in my ways. I like GitHub. I like GitLab. I don't know. I'll look at it at some point. But it's one of those, because we're not day-to-day true consulting, as it will. We manage services, so it's looking after what's already there. It's a bit of a different game.
Yeah, but look at so today blueprints are prepared by the AWS team, but still they empower you to quickly get started on something. Now, one of my early wishes has been, I would like to be able to have a new project blueprint for myself that has specific things that I always do. Today, you do that with Progen, or you do a copy paste, or you do whatever, right? But think of the possibility of having a blueprint that you have been working on, and that you can use for all projects. And the moment that you change that, because now let's assume that Carl is not the CEO anymore, then you become CEO, you want to change all of the copyright things, like, because you need to put your name in, right? Today, if you need to go to all projects to do that, if you have that in a central place, and you can just apply all of these changes to all of your 500 million customer projects that you did, then that would be kind of an easy thing to do. And this is where I see things becoming hopefully easier as well going forward. And then, as I said, CodeCatalyst is at least 3 years behind, maybe 4 years behind of what GitHub is. totally agree with you, John, but I can see the potential of it being a central place for development on AWS going forward.
Sounds good. It's a future we can all aspire to. So moving on from the pre-invent announcements, our last article is about some reInvent predictions from various analysts and journalists in the space. So let's talk a little bit about some of the predictions that these guys have come up with. And perhaps John and Johannes have some predictions of your own. So let's take a look. Chris Totsu was the first analyst in this article, and he's expecting some announcements around Gen AI. Well, we've already had quite a lot of announcements around Gen AI. I think one of the other analysts in this article talked about Bedrock having access to new large language models. Well, there was some of those in the newsletter. I think there was 2 or 3 new large language models that have already been announced. But what do you guys think might be coming out around Gen AI? What's left beyond what's already been announced?
Vaporware. There'll be some vaporware that comes out, no doubt. Yes, new LLMs, great. Pricing might become a bit more concrete. Maybe not. Probably start looking at things that aren't LLMs, like image creation and things like that, because I think there's a model included that handles something of that nature, but something in that space as well. And then, as Johannes was kind of alluding to in the Partyrock piece that we were talking about earlier, we might be seeing more concrete ways of how Bedrock is able to interface with all the other tools and services and so on.
So I think on the Gen AI space, AWS has been running behind a bit. That's why they pre-announced Bedrock way too early. Now it is kind of available in a sense, like people are starting to use it, but we have not really seen AWS using it. And I think that's what we're going to see at reInvent a little bit as well. Like things like Partyrock, things like Code Whisperer being improved. We yesterday saw an announcement, which is amazing. We didn't include it in the newsletter, but it's about Fig. And that means Code Whisperer coming to the command line at the end, right? So you can now have autocomplete in the command line, which is pretty cool. I don't need to remember Git commands anymore. But I hope that we're going to get more like that. Gen AI applied to some day-to-day tasks, whatever that means, right? This could be, as I mentioned earlier, CloudWatch insights improvements. This could be potentially some automations in some of the other parts. But this is what I would hope for on the Gen AI space.
Yeah, that Fig thing sounds cool. I've been using Fig for years, and then AWS bought them, and I'm like, they're going to integrate something with this, and it's going to be really cool. And yeah, that's just going to be cool.
Anything we're going to see at reInvent that's nothing to do with Gen AI?
FinOps.
FinOps is one of the predictions here from one of these analysts. So what do you think we might see around FinOps, John?
They're going to wax lyrical about the fact that they've joined the FinOps Foundation at long bloody last, and then talk about all the different ways that they can help their customers save money on the bill that they're charging them.
Yep, I see that one as well. What do we expect on the serverless front? Because, John, that's what you like talking about. What do you have in mind?
Oh, we might get some new step functions features, hopefully. Some new states would be nice, because like when they went from map to distributed map, that was just game-changing for processing really big data sets. That was enormous. We've had some step function stuff already with the redrive stuff. Hopefully we'll get more in that kind of area. Semi-recently, it's not a pre-invent piece, but within the last kind of 6 months or so, you could finally get a graphic workflow in the console for Express functions, which is just great, because back when I was using them kind of in anger every day, you kind of defaulted to doing them in standard so that you could see them when you were debugging them. You can kind of say, oh, the failure is there, rather than having to read through some fairly awkward log files. That's kind of already been done 6 months back. So maybe we'll get more in that kind of space. What I'd really like to see is a new workflow type entirely, although I don't know what that would look like. I just think it'd be cool if they come up with a third one. Don't know. I have no idea what it would be, though.
Okay, cool. I'd want to put a little bit the spot on Amplify, who has already started a lot of the pre-event announcements. I think that there is much more cool stuff that they will be providing. So I think yesterday they announced a support for all server-side rendering frameworks, which kind of sounds like a small thing, right? But in Amplify hosting, it really simplifies the way that you can interact with that. And there's other, I think, announcements coming in this week already before reInvent. But I really believe that they have done a tremendous job this year in combining all of the announcements to the launch week that they're having. So I see a lot of stuff coming there. Then other predictions. Well, not going to CodeCatalyst route, because I guess that there's going to be some stuff coming. It's a pretty new service. We had Application Composer, which you were laughing about, John, and I kind of agree to that, but I think that this is still an early team and will also get some attention, right? So
no, I want it to get attention. It deserves to be better than it is.
You just mentioned like the step functions in the Visual Studio Code. Getting Application Composer into the Visual Studio plugin would be cool, right? And then Application Composer, I would still want to have some more guidance on how do I deploy that stuff afterwards, right? They have that SAM integration today, which they already have, but I would love to get some more. So this would be an area where I believe that there will be some cool stuff coming as well from a predictions perspective. And of course, we always forget, but we're going to get 725 new instance types with a microsecond spilling, and obviously we also going to new regions and new edge locations, I would guess. But
instance types optimized for Gen AI, of course. So
most probably, yes,
absolutely.
Here's but on that note, with 17 million GPUs.
All right, then. On that note, we've gone way over time this week. So
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. We've we've had an interesting discussion. So
one question for you to kind of follow up, and don't answer it now, but it might get some attraction. And John, most probably it's going to be for you. One of the things that we have been discussing last year after reInvent is what is the definition of serverless? How do we define that? And one of the points that I hope that we can also kind of clarify is going forward, what do we see as serverless services? Because there has been some confusion last year. For me, and I'm going to just put that in as a statement, and then we'll see if you get more than 7 hate mails now this time, Carl. Serverless could be seen as long as you don't need a VPC, it's serverless. The moment that you need to create a VPC, it's not serverless anymore. I don't know. Let's put that in and let's see how many hate mails you get, Carl. If you break record this time, you might invite me again.
I'm going to have to review John's recent talk that he did on WTF. I'm not going to say it in its full form. WTF is serverless, to see whether that's in there or not.
It is.
Then we can debate whether it should or should not be. But thanks for throwing that hand grenade in at the end of the episode, Johannes. Definitely something we can discuss further on a future episode. So, we've gone way over time. So let's wrap it up there. That was season 2, episode 39 of Logicast, the AWS News podcast brought to you by Logicata. Thank you, John, as always, Goodall, for your insights, and thank you, Johannes, our hero, for coming back on the podcast and sharing your reInvent predictions. And have a great time in Vegas next week when you go to reInvent, and perhaps we'll catch up once again and hear about your reInvent experiences. So thank you all for listening. Don't forget, if you enjoyed the podcast, tell your friends. If you didn't enjoy it, write some hate mail to me. I can handle it. Don't worry, I'm a big boy. You can download the podcast from wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll be back after reInvent with another guest to talk about some of the things that were announced. So thank you very much for listening. We'll see you again next time. Cheers.